Today, we are deleting bees. Most people think this is a story about honey. They're wrong. This is the story of the invisible thread that holds our entire world together. We are talking about a collapse that starts in the produce aisle and ends with the disintegration of global civilization. In this video, we'll show you how your local supermarket transforms into a colorless, beige room of survival as the meat and dairy industries vanish overnight. We'll witness the dystopian nightmare of billions of people forced into the trees to hand-pollinate the earth by hand, while global wars shift from oil fields to wheat paddies. Finally, we'll face a cold, mathematical reality, a planet that can only support 2 billion humans, leaving the other 6 billion in a world where even our life-saving medicines have crumbled into dust. This is World Erased. Imagine walking into your local grocery store 6 months from today. The vibrant reds of the apple bins, gone. The deep purples of the berry aisle, empty. Within one single growing season, 70% of the produce aisle vanishes. Pollination is the handshake of the botanical world, and the system times out as soon as the signal is lost. No almonds, no avocados, no cucumbers, and, the most terrifying part, no coffee. Blueberries and strawberries will become historical artifacts, discussed the same way we talk about the Library of Alexandria, a lost masterpiece of nature that we can no longer access. What's left is a world of wind-pollinated staples, wheat, rice, and corn. Every meal becomes a monotonous struggle for calories over nutrition. The supermarket is no longer a place of choice. It's a beige room of survival. We often think of cows as simple grass eaters, but the high-protein diet required for modern dairy and beef production relies on legumes like alfalfa. Alfalfa relies entirely on insect interaction to seed. When the blossoms go unvisited, the alfalfa crops collapse. When the feed disappears, the cattle disappear. Supply chains are built on the assumption of infinite biomass, and the industrial farming complex becomes a graveyard of hollow machinery, unable to process the air and water that cows can no longer convert into protein. The chain snaps faster than any economic model can predict, not in years, but in months. The dairy shelf goes empty, followed shortly by the meat counter. We are forced into a global, involuntary vegetarianism, not by choice, but by total system failure. It's not just what you eat, it's what you wear. Cotton accounts for roughly 35% of global textile production. While cotton can technically self-pollinate, the lack of insect boosting ensures the yield and quality plummet. Textile production evaporates, hitting everything from fashion to medical gauze and military uniforms. Microplastics aren't just in the ocean anymore. They become the only material we can wear. Natural, breathable fibers become so rare that wearing a 100% cotton t-shirt becomes a mark of extreme wealth, equivalent to wearing gold. We are looking at a return to synthetic-only clothing, which brings its own set of environmental nightmares as we become even more dependent on oil and plastics. 80% of the world's wildflowers need pollinators to reproduce. The plants stop existing the moment the generational cycle is broken. As the older plants die off, there is no next generation to replace them. Every unpollinated flower is a broken line of code in the Earth's operating system. Evolution effectively hits a pause button as the genetic diversity of the wild world is funneled into a narrow corridor of windswept grasses and weeds. Forests begin to thin. The edges of the world's green spaces start going brown. The animals that depended on those seeds and fruits, birds, rodents, primates, starve. It is a slow-motion collapse of the Earth's botanical library. In parts of Sichuan, China, this isn't a what-if, it's a job. Because of local die-offs, humans have to climb trees to hand-pollinate blossoms with brushes. But the efficiency gap is staggering. A single bee can visit 5,000 flowers in a day, whereas it would take a human worker a week to achieve the same output with 100% accuracy. We are trading a self-replicating, autonomous workforce for a clumsy, expensive, and ultimately failing substitute. 8 billion people cannot be fed with brushes. The labor cost makes a single piece of fruit cost more than a high-end steak. The scaling is impossible. It is a desperate manual workaround for a biological system that used to run for free in the background of the planet. To salvage the wind-pollinated crops like wheat and corn, governments will become desperate. They will flood the remaining fields with chemical pesticides to eliminate pest insects that are now competing for the dwindling resources. We turn our fields into operating rooms, sterile, chemical-heavy zones where nothing lives but the specific grain we need. But a sterile earth is a fragile one. The moment a new fungus or blight evolves, there is no natural defense left to stop it. It works for a moment, but it kills the remaining soil microbiome. This is a feedback loop of failure. Every fix we implement only accelerates the collapse of the land itself. In 2006, bees began disappearing by the billions. Overnight. No bodies, just empty hives. It was called colony collapse disorder. Think of it as a memory leak in a global operating system. We've been losing bits of our biological stability for decades, with patches applied too late to fix a core architecture that is already crumbling. For years, governments classified research, and pesticide companies buried their own studies to protect profits. The EU eventually stepped in to ban neonicotinoids, but others waited decades. The erasure we are talking about today, it didn't start in this script. It started 20 years ago, and we've been ignoring the system warnings ever since. When food becomes scarce, money becomes meaningless. We're talking about inflation at a scale no modern economy is built to handle. The US dollar or the euro loses its grip as the world's reserve currency, replaced by the calorie currency. In a world of scarcity, the new gold is the bushel of wheat. Nations that still have fertile, non-pollinator-dependent land, the wheat belts of the world, suddenly become the most valuable strategic targets on the map. Wars aren't fought over oil anymore. They are fought over rice paddies and wheat fields. The global order restructures around whoever can still provide a basic bowl of grain. Here is the data point that should keep you awake tonight. Earth's maximum sustainable population in a world restricted to wind-pollinated crops is estimated at roughly 2 billion people. We are currently at 8 billion. This is the hard limit of the Earth's server capacity. We are overclocking a planet that has lost its primary cooling system. The math is cold and unforgiving. 75% of the human population is currently living on borrowed calories that the planet can no longer produce. This isn't just a food crisis. It's a quiet sentence on 6 billion people, written the moment the last hive went cold. 25% of our modern medicine comes from flowering plants. Morphine for pain, quinine for malaria, even cancer-fighting drugs like Taxol. Every time a wildflower species goes extinct, a potential cure for a future pandemic is deleted from the database. We are burning the blueprints for our own survival before we've even learned how to read them. As the botanical world vanishes, our pharmaceutical supply chain quietly collapses in the background. We aren't just hungry, we are sick, and we are losing the natural tools we've used to heal ourselves for millennia. We spend our lives worrying about the big threats, economic cycles, geopolitical shifts, and the next great technological leap. But we rarely stop to consider that the entire structure of human civilization was built on the back of a creature that doesn't even know we exist. Maybe it's time we realize that we aren't the masters of this world. were just the guests of a much smaller, much busier landlord. What should we erase next? The Romans? Or perhaps money itself? Leave a comment below on which piece of history you want to see vanish. This has been World Erased.